Welcome to Mountaineer Food Bank Food Safety Training. This course is required for each partner agency with Mountaineer Food Bank. A representative from each agency must be trained in food safety by Mountaineer Food Bank once every 2 years. In the event that the trained representative leaves your agency, someone else must take the training. There will be a test. At the end of this video, there will be information on how to take the test following this course. Let's get started. It's very important that we guard against contamination. There are 3 types of hazards that can make food unsafe. The first one is biological. That's the bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi that we normally can't see. Then there are physical hazards. Physical hazards can be natural, such as fruit pits that can cause choking, and they can also be jewelry, glass, brittle plastics, ceramics, and bandages. Anything that can drop into food during preparation or packaging, or even during the manufacturing process. The next are chemical hazards. Chemical hazards are cleaners, sanitizers, and pesticides. It's really important to make sure that you keep any and all cleaners, sanitizers, pesticides away from food storage areas. Ways that people make food unsafe. Poor personal hygiene is the most common way that people transfer pathogens to food, is by wearing dirty clothing, dirty aprons, or not washing their hands. Cross-contamination happens whenever a pathogen is transferred from one food item to another food item, or from a surface to a food item. Time temperature abuse consists of allowing food to stay outside of the temperature range that it's supposed to be at, such as in a refrigerator or freezer, too long. Poor cleaning and sanitizing habits are also a way that people make food unsafe. It's really important that we keep our food storage areas clean. Your role in making food safe. Your role in keeping food safe. Practice good personal hygiene. Make sure that your volunteers and employees have on clean clothing the day that you are packing food boxes or backpacks or preparing hot meals. Make sure the aprons are clean. Make sure that everyone washes their hands and showers the day that they will be handling or packaging food. Control time temperature abuse. Prevent cross-contamination. Don't transfer pathogens from one surface to a food item or from a food item to a food item. Make sure that you clean and sanitize regularly to prevent this from happening. For example, if you are processing chicken, which contains a pathogen, and you have chicken on your table, you want to make sure that before you lay another food item on that table that you clean that surface properly. Let's take a look at allergens. Allergens are certain types of food that can make people very sick and even cause death. Labeling enables us to keep people safe. Every item that leaves your agency should have a label. We are not allowed to send out anything to the public that does not have a label on it. And each label must contain any food allergens that are in that product. Bread, for example, contains milk, eggs, sometimes nuts, and wheat that are all food allergens. So that must be labeled before it can leave your agency. Prevent cross-contact. Cross-contact takes place whenever you transfer residue from an allergen to another product. Cleaning up spills is extremely important. If you have a food allergen that come into contact with other food, then you must make sure that you are able to properly clean the other food item, the outside of the packaging, that there is no residue left on that before you send it out. If not, that must be thrown in the trash. Let's take a look at the Big 8. The Big 8 allergens are milk and milk products such as ice cream and cheese, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish such as shrimp and crab, tree nuts, including pecans, walnuts, and almonds, peanuts, and any product made from peanuts or anything that's made with peanut oil, soy and soy products, and of course wheat. Hand washing. There is a proper way to wash your hands whenever you are handling other people's food. It's important that you wet your hands first using running water. Apply enough soap to create a good lather. Scrub your hands, arms, and under your fingernails for 10 to 15 seconds. Rinse hands and arms with running water and dry your hands with a clean, disposable towel or air dryer. And if possible, turn off the faucet with a paper towel and open the door with a paper towel. When to wash your hands. Hands should of course be washed after using the restroom, touching the hair, face, or body, touching your clothing, taking out the garbage, handling chemicals such as cleaners and sanitizers, after chewing gum or tobacco, before putting on gloves, after handling raw meat, poultry, or seafood, after sneezing, coughing, or using tissue, after eating or drinking, after smoking, after leaving the food preparation or packaging area and returning, and after touching anything that may contaminate your hands and make food unsafe. Not washing your hands is the #1 way that people transfer pathogens. Hand washing is of the utmost importance. It enables us to keep people safe when handling their food. It is also important to have a sink that is designated as a hand washing sink only. Hand washing sinks are to be designated for hand washing only. They are not to be used for food preparation. They are not to be used for disposal. They must be easily accessible, fully stocked with disposable towels, hand soap, and running water. And hand antiseptics are to be used after washing hands only. Hand sanitizer is never to be used in place of washing hands. According to the manufacturer's instructions, hand sanitizers are actually supposed to be used and are the most beneficial after hand washing. The proper use of gloves. Gloves should be single-use, disposable gloves only. They should fit properly, shouldn't be too tight or too loose. Never reuse disposable gloves. Don't wash them and try to get a second use out of them. Make sure that you always wash your hands before putting on gloves. And if you use a hand antiseptic or hand sanitizer prior to putting on your gloves, make sure that dries really well first. Do not blow on your gloves to make them open, and do not roll them to put them on. Change gloves whenever they become soiled or dirty, or whenever you handle raw meat or begin a new task. Hands and nails. Hands and nails should be kept clean. Any wounds on your hands should be covered with bandages and then covered with a glove. And nails should always be kept short to avoid food contamination. When packaging or preparing food, you should always wear a clean apron. Make sure that your hair is covered with a hair covering or a hat. And keep jewelry to a minimum. A plain wedding band is the only jewelry that should be worn while preparing or packaging food. Remember, if you are sick, have diarrhea, jaundice, a fever, sore throat, you should make sure that you inform your supervisor or director prior to handling someone else's food. Never eat, drink, or smoke while preparing or packaging food. Controlling time temperature abuse for safety. Let's first define what a cold chain is. A cold chain is a temperature-controlled supply chain, such as the manufacturer to distributor, distributor to food bank to agency, and agency to client. When unbroken, the cold chain maintains a given temperature range. A broken cold chain can result in foodborne illness. Preventing a break in the cold chain. This is very important. Use thermometers to control the temperature of food. Keep food frozen solid at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Store refrigerated food, including cut produce, at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Make sure thermometers are in each refrigerator and freezer at your agency, and that those temperatures are routinely documented at least every 3 days. Drive times in unrefrigerated vehicles should be kept to 30 minutes or less. Never leave frozen or refrigerated food sitting out at room temperature. Always use freezer blankets, coolers, and ice packs when transporting food. The cold chain is broken whenever food reaches the temperature danger zone between 41 degrees and 135 degrees Fahrenheit and should be disposed of. Let's move on to proper food storage. Never use pesticides, insecticides in or around the food storage areas. Use glue traps and regular traps for pest control. Food must be stored at least 6 inches off of the floor or pallet height. Store food away from walls to allow for air circulation. Store food in containers intended for food storage only. Always store ready-to-eat food above raw meat. Never store food containing allergens above other food to prevent cross-contact. Make sure that you store frozen food in freezers maintaining a temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Frozen food should remain frozen solid. Store refrigerated foods, including cut produce, at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Store food in designated food storage areas only, away from chemicals and non-food items. Inventory control. There are a couple of different methods that you can use to control the inventory in your backpack program, your hot meal program, or your pantry. FIFO is first expired, first out. That means that you should use whatever product that you have that expires first before the other product. FIFO means first in, first out. This means if you receive a product that does not have an expiration date, then you should use that product first because we don't know when it expires. You should keep some type of an inventory record so you know which product you should use first. Let's move on to food product dating. It is routine for the food bank to receive donated product that has been outdated. There are some guidelines that you should use when it comes to outdated product. Some containers have a manufacturing or packing date. This is not an expiration date. This is a date and a code used by the manufacturer to designate which batch this product was manufactured in, and it's mainly used for food safety recall purposes. There are also sell-by dates. A sell-by date is a quality date. It tells the store how long to display the product for sale, and the product may very well still be safe to eat past this date. A best by or best if used by date is a quality date. It tells the client the date by which the product should be eaten for best flavor or quality. However, the product is still safe to eat past this date. The use by or expiration date is the last date recommended for the product while at peak quality. The product is still safe to eat past this date. If you go to the login page where you place your orders at mountaineerfoodbank.org, I have placed a reference guide at the bottom of the home page that was received from the Food and Drug Administration. Please allow it to serve as a desk guide at your agency when handling outdated food. Mountaineer Food Bank does allow repackaging of dry food only. For example, if you get a really large box of a dry good, such as Cheerios, that's too much to be given to one family, it's okay to repackage that into gallon bags. However, your room must be completely sanitized. Floors, walls, prep tables, and any tools that you use to repackage the food. It is of the utmost importance that all food that has been repackaged have a label containing the food ingredients, as well as a list of each major allergen that is contained in that product. Agencies are not allowed to distribute any food that has been homemade or canned. It has to be discarded. Preparing your vehicle. It's really important that when you come to pick up your food from Mountaineer Food Bank or any other donors, that your vehicle be appropriately cleaned beforehand. Transporting food safely. Your vehicle must be cleaned prior to picking up food from Mountaineer Food Bank. Never use a vehicle used for hauling garbage to pick up food. Your vehicle should be free of pests such as insects and rodents. Keep any items that could contaminate food such as oil, antifreeze, and wiper fluid away from food while transporting. Make sure if you've hauled anything in your vehicle that you are picking up the food in, that you have appropriately cleaned that vehicle prior to picking up the food. Refrigerated vehicles must be pre-cooled prior to loading food. Coolers, ice packs, and thermal blankets must be used in unrefrigerated vehicles to keep food cold. Do not store nor transport chemicals on top of food items. Do not store nor transport allergens on top of other food items. And once again, make sure that if you are transporting frozen or refrigerated food, that you have the proper equipment to do so. You will need freezer blankets or coolers with ice pack, and keep drive times to 30 minutes or less. Use boxes that are clean, dry, and sturdy. Never leave food unattended outside. Do not unload food by garbage containers, and do not bring pets when picking up food. It's very important that we check donations before we send them out to the public. We need to check cans and make sure that there are no defects that would make anyone sick. For example, if a can has a dent in the seam, then more than likely there's a micro tear that could allow in pathogens that would make someone sick, and it needs to be discarded. Cans with severe dents that have sharp edges or are non-stackable should be disposed of. Cans that have missing labels. We cannot distribute anything to the public that has a missing label. It is very important that each product that we give to the public has a label stating the ingredients in the product, and most importantly, any allergens. Cans that have swollen or bulging ends are contaminated and should be disposed of. Any cans that have visible holes or leakage should not be distributed to the public. Any cans that contain rust that cannot be wiped off must be thrown in the trash. This means that the rust has permeated the surface of the can and it has made the food unsafe. Any jars that do not contain labels with ingredients and a list of allergens must be thrown away. If a jar has a loose lid or the safety seal is missing, it must be discarded. If a jar contains signs of visible leakage or it is broken, if it looks odd to the appearance, if the food is discolored, it must be thrown away. Dry packaging of food. It's important to inspect the outside of the box. If the outer seal is open, but the inner seal remains intact, it's okay to give this to the public. However, if the inner seal is busted, it must be thrown away. Any items that have been punctured, such as a bag of flour, bag of sugar, must be thrown away. Those punctures could allow pathogens to enter the food product. Checking produce for defects. If produce contains mold, it should be discarded. If your produce is busted or has excessive bruising, then it should be discarded as well. If there are insects or insect body parts, then that produce should be discarded. Remember, cut produce should be stored at 41 degrees or lower. That's cut apples, cut lettuce, and any other produce that has been cut should be stored at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Please make sure that produce is repackaged in a container that's suitable for food storage. In other words, don't put it in a trash bag. Don't put your produce in a trash bag and then hand it out to the public. There's something in the manufacturing processes put on the inside of trash bags that can make people sick. Checking over-the-counter medications for defects. If there's a safety seal missing on an over-the-counter medication, it must be thrown away. Never give out over-the-counter medication that has expired. And the packaging of over-the-counter medications must be legible. If the label cannot be read, it needs to be thrown away. When to clean and sanitize. You should always make sure that your food storage areas are clean. Clean the shelving that food is stored on, clean floors and walls, and sanitize the surfaces. And again, make sure that you always clean and sanitize your prep table where you're doing any food preparation or food packaging, including packing backpacks. How to clean and sanitize surfaces. First, you should scrape off any food from the surface. Then you should wash the surface. Rinse the surface. Sanitize the surface. And allow the surface to air dry. Cleaning and sanitizing stationary equipment. You should always make sure that you unplug any stationary electrical equipment prior to cleaning. Make sure that you use appropriate sanitizing solutions and that you follow the manufacturer's instructions. Don't leave garbage in your food storage areas to discourage pests. Make sure that you take your garbage out as soon as possible. Handling of garbage. Make sure that all garbage containers are cleaned outside, away from food storage areas. And make sure that all garbage containers have a lid and that they stay closed. 3 basin sinks are used by hot meal programs. The first sink is used for washing. The second sink is used for rinsing. The third sink is used for sanitizing. And all equipment should be air dried. Thank you for watching Mountaineer Food Bank's food safety training video. Please proceed to the test.